the board, but it's just interesting that Dan is pulling bans despite his champion pool being so large.
Yeah, I mean, he pulled bans from Gamers 2 yesterday when I take a look at it. Actually, Zach was banned from Gamers 2 yesterday. Zach, Rek'Sai, Kalista were Gamers 2's bans. For the MOU's side, Nidalee, Alistair Vayne were the bans in yesterday's game. So Echo, as you said, is a new one for this series. Also, I wonder whether MOU's are going to look to ban AD carries here. Oh, they don't have any bans. That's... oh, you got me. You got me. They don't have any bans.
Spending a lot of time on this one.
MOU's, as we said, emergency substitute comes in. They don't have any bans for this game. So jungle seems to be the priority. That Gamers 2 are probably going to first pick Gragas, I would imagine, in this kind of setup. When you know you can ban everything else and leave all the AD carries, everything else open, why not? Ban Kalista last, maybe, then you basically force Sivir Corki out onto the Rift, maybe? I don't know, just kind of thinking of ideas. There's a lot of time where MOUs aren't banning.
It's true. Fresh will be the final ban up against Mountain. You spoke about a lot of Irelia players. We have a lot of Fresh players as well. Mountain's pretty good at that champion. Nisbet as well. Hiva does like things like Annie, other type of champions. Alistair as well. Also likes going into the enemy jungle and 1v5ing and dying. But apart from that, has generally had a pretty good run. But Hiva knows I'm joking. But yeah, just waiting on his first pick from Beansu right now.
Ruthless today, Pulse.
I know, man. I'm getting jittery because we haven't had a game for a while.
Is it the sun? Is that what's happening? Like,
no, it was the salty pick from Senka. Just made me super salty, I guess. But there you go. First pick in from Smitty J is the Sivir. Kalista is still on the board, though. Kalista is being hovered over by Mouse.
So this is an interesting one. You ban 2 junglers. You know you have priority over the picks. You know they can't ban the 3rd junglers, and you don't pick it is an interesting one. Then you pick Sivir, which is available when the other tier 180 carry is up. Interesting picks and ban strategy, to say the least. So... Gamers, that's a really weird one for me. Like, why ban 2 junglers if you're not going to first pick the first? Because realistically, MOU's right here should just take the Gragas. I mean, I know Dan isn't a particularly big Gragas player, but certainly it's been tier 1 long enough that you pretty much would expect it. And it's a clear tell that Gamers 2 are going to pick it up in the next rotation.
Maybe Gamers 2 see something that we do not stress. I wonder if that's the case. Don't need to prioritize the Kalista just yet, though, as AD carry has already been picked up. Just showing that they can play it. But Lee Sin will be picked up by Dan. Yet another jungler coming in, unless they throw it into a different name, but presumably on Dan this game, and then Alistair for support.
Dan's a Lee player anyway, so I kind of expect...
He plays everything.
I expect him to go early game, but Lee is, while it's still a strong and jungler that certainly is in the meta, I don't feel like it's worthy to pick over Gragas. Now, we haven't seen the 5.12 patch settle yet. The games we have seen, Rek'Sai and Gragas are still tier 1 from the jungle, so, anecdotal evidence doesn't really go away from what is the norm. But that is an interesting one out from Dan. This is going to kind of force MOU's to play more of a pick style more than anything when you look at it. You look at what Kikis did with Lee Sin with the Unicorns of Love. Very difficult to transition a lead with Lee into a win, especially against poke compositions.
Well, the early game is so important.
That's a Karma.
That is a Karma. Okay, so Karma a couple patches ago did get a little damage shaved off her Soul Flare, which does a lot of damage. I don't think we're going to be seeing it in mid lane. The changes were basically to put him more in a support role. Yeah,
I'm expecting this to be support Karma, which I feel like... Again, it's another pick that we were talking about. This is so weird how today's picks and bans are gone. We were talking about Karma in the office today with Deficio and about whether it's a viable support, believe it or not. This is in the Braum discussion. And he was talking about how, when you're running poke compositions, it acts as another form of disengage where you pop the ultimate with the Defiance, with the shield for Inspire. You run away super quick. You have poke yourself. You don't have reliable crowd control, though. You have to have the tether land. The Q, if you don't use the ultimate on it, is very small for a slow, so it's a weird one. There were certainly mixed ideas about it when we were talking about it earlier. But MOU's, as you said, that's an Ashe being locked in. He did have a change, a slight nerf was the consider. It's now more difficult to activate your Q.
Correct.
In lane.
Yeah.
And now you have to stack it 2 or 3 times without using abilities.
Yeah, TLDR, you can't just volley a minion wave and instantly get access to your damage. Now you actually have to just hit people.
Yeah.
But yeah, so that's been picked away here. They do not go for the Callista, which is the interesting thing. Azir has been taken away by Sayo. Had a great run with it yesterday. Lots of orders were being given. And then on Gamers 2, Jace has been picked up with the AP threat in the top lane. So this is exactly what you were talking about with the H2K type lineups, even Origin as well. So Gamers 2 are adapting to the LCS meta that's been coming in.
Yeah.
Mouse, however, hovering Callista, I assume it's not going to be a Callista.
I'm assuming it's not. They've already got the Ashe. As you said, this is very similar to what Gamers 2 were running yesterday. Now they're mixing in a slightly different support. I quite like it. General thoughts, very similar to the Braum game, is Janna, if you're looking at the support for disengage, is kind of queen of the mountain when it comes to it. There's no real way of disengaging any better than a Janna, especially when you're running a Gragas. That's a Galio locked in.
All right, let's go.
Okay, so Galio has been played in LCK, I believe it was by Incredible Miracle, and I believe they lost that game. We don't see Galio all that often. The ones that stick out in my mind, SK Gaming played support Galio all the way back. I think it may have even been 2014. This is going to be a Galio top because you wouldn't pick Galio into Jace because that's suicide. Melee into range, MR into AD. So that has to be a top lane Galio. I mean, Galio needs a flank. If you can teleport in behind people and run in and ult behind them.
Well, let's look at Galio right now, because we are on 5-12. There was a buff to him.
There was.
Basically, what the buff was, more times he gets hit, the more damage he does. Basically, rewards him for full ultimates. The change before that was that Tenacity, his ultimate, is not affected by it. So if you run in, then you're always going to get the max duration. You can't just walk out because I bought Merc Treads. So that's a pretty significant change. So as long as you aren't running Xin Zhao, who just activates Q before he goes into the Galio ult, then you will never really get disrupted. But there are still things on Gamers 2 which can disrupt him from long range, such as the Gragas ultimate. So
it is only the Gragas ult, though. It is only the Gragas ult that will disrupt it.
But Jace also has cleanse, so he can cleanse and then Thundering Blow.
Okay, that is the other thing, because
he has to expend a summoner.
Yeah, he has to expend a summoner, and he has to then get close enough to Thundering Blow, which means he'll be in damage range when it explodes anyway. So yeah. By the way, guys, we do have a prolonged pause in game. Mals are actually still paused, so we are just waiting on that one. But luckily, there is a lot to think about between these team compositions. There is. I mean, at least they gave us something interesting.
I know, right?
On a pause. So yeah, Galio is a champion that every time he has a buff or a change, everyone's like, yeah, why is Galio not played? And then you remember he's typically a mid lane champion who's a melee champion that needs MR to scale, where you've got to spend a lot of time getting itemization, put points into abilities that don't deal a lot of damage itself. And then his Q is really frustrating to hit. Short range, travels at a moderate speed, but is avoidable. And it's only if you hit it on multiple people that it really does a lot. So that's the kind of the TLDR on why we don't see Galio too much. It's just very difficult to set up his ult as well. Like I've kind of been anticipating Galio Callista lanes for a while, but that's not what we're seeing here.
Well, while we have a little bit of time, remember to head over to Twitter and use those hashtags G2win or MOU win. Tweet at LOL Esports, and we'll be checking in with your opinions as we get into game. When we get into game as well. That's the other thing. But yeah, so Galio, we've kind of talked a lot about him. It's kind of like the Amumu effect, where it's just like, I'm back, and then doesn't.
So it's a weird one because it's on Binsu. Binsu's another player that I kind of expect to pick stuff like Irelia. Because Binsu likes... Yeah, exactly. We've got so many Irelia players here in Challenger.
I'm an Irelia player.
Binsu, you're a Riven player right now.
Right now,
You can't try and disguise yourself as an Irelia player.
I used to be.
It used to be. Then you've turned to a Riven main and one of those people.
Forced to play Maokai. Anyway.
In this setup, though, I actually find myself saying I don't mind the Galio so much. Like, we're seeing very kind of unique champion picks by certain teams that fulfill different requirements within a game. Like, for instance, casting mine back to Giants this week in the LCS, they ran the Wukong jungle. Actually didn't mind the Wukong jungle. It was just the execution wasn't particularly amazing. Like, Wukong is one of the best champions for crowd control with his ultimate, in the sense that you just ult and anybody near you just gets crowd controlled for quite a long duration. You don't particularly have to engage on people. If they engage on you, it's great counter engage. No point can you really engage on a Wukong while his ult is going. Same thing with Galio. No real way to engage on a Galio without hard disengage. And as you said, in this lineup, only really the Gragas is the one that has the hard disengage without using a summoner.
Yeah, and with this poke composition, gamers 2 are always going to be wanting to kite back, and Galio will stop in the way of that. But he's always going to either neither flank, like you talked about, or have the flash. But then, if gamers 2 are on top of their game, they have disengage everywhere. They had the disengage with the Grag Assault, they had the Defiance from the Karma as well to just run away from the Galio. So it's really going to be important, because if he can land his 5-man ult, that's basically a one-team fight. Because that's like, what, 2-3 seconds of Sire waiting on you with the soldiers. Yeah,
I don't think he's going to land a 5-man ult.
I don't think so either.
If he lands a 5-man ult against a Sivir and a Karma, who both basically have a Sivir ultimate in their kit. That's what the Mantrid Inspire is, where you just get that massive shield on everybody around you and you kind of run super fast. If you get a Galio ult on 5 people with those two things, something has gone horribly wrong in the setup. But G2 have a lot of, as we said, poke potential, chase potential. They have disengage. They have good team fight setup when it comes to it. It's just going to be dependent on whether Beansu can actually teleport himself into the back of a fight, because then they have a lot of zone control coming out from Galio, from the Alistair, from the Azir as well to disengage. And of course they've got the engage potential with the ult coming from Ashe too. But speaking of Ashe, it's actually Inero that is having connection problems. So we're trying to get him back into the game and trying to resolve his issues as fast as we can.
That's pretty unlucky, as your AD carry isn't able to make it, and then your new AD carry is then having issues. It's just not working out for MOU so far, but I really want to see their composition in action.
Ashe against Poke.
Yeah, and they had Kalista available. Didn't pick it.
Well, we'll see.
Had the Ashe as well, but we're about to get in-game, so enough of our talking. Well, we're going to carry on talking, but enough of our faces
what we're here to do,
with the talking. Alright, we're going to get in game anyway. Gamers 2 and Mousesports into this one. The second game between these two teams over the last couple of days, and the final game of week 2. And everyone is heading out of the base from Mouse in a clump.
So I want to kind of go back to that point we were just about to touch on with the Ashe into Poke. So Poke is kind of undone by hard engage. Ashe provides good engage, which is the benefits of having Ashe against this composition. Ashe is very low mobility as an AD carry, and therefore is going to have dancing shoes on to avoid all the poke. Because once Shock Blast lands onto an Ashe, you are out of the fight. You have to just completely retreat back, and there is almost nothing you can do in that situation.
Lots of pings going down from both teams. Question of where the vision is going down. Mouse have gone into the opposing jungle, placed down their single ward. Meanwhile, Gamers 2 have headed into the top side of the map, and Mouse all camped in this tiny pixel brush in the river. Smitty J, Jesse, and Gilius. Just a question of maybe potentially getting caught out. Mountain Beansuit leading the charge here. The recalls are coming in from Gamers 2. They're going to see Mountain as he gets out of the bush. The flash into the free-man knockup. This could very well be First Blood, and it's going to be a lot of kills going down. First Blood over to the Ashe, though, onto a Nero, and Smitty J is now under attack. A good resolute smite onto Heaver and Jesse, but now here comes the Jace as well onto a Nero. He's just standing there trying to put down as much damage as he can onto Smitty, and that would be a 1-for-1 overall. A bunch of summoners burnt.
Yeah, a lot of summoners burnt. G2 showed themselves in the top side of the map on the way into that. I want to go all the way back, and then we'll get to the Ashe at the end. That flash pulverize out of Mountain was about as fast as you could get it onto multiple people. It was a good setup for Mouse in the end. So the Ashe, I'm going to say it, in Arrow was disconnected at that point. A little bit tricky. I'm assuming that was, you know, where the pause came from in that situation. So in Arrow, it's unfortunate. He get a kill for himself, though. So that's just Mouse having an unfortunate start to this game.
All right.
Unfortunate. They got first blood.
Yeah. So it didn't work out that awfully for them. Junglers doing jungling, taking their buffs. Bot lane, Inero and Mountain. Very interested in seeing how this lane will work out since we've seen so much of Cedric and Mountain. Seems like never seen that pair apart, but this time, the one day it happens. Hiva, Jesse, hint here with the Karma coming around with the Spell Thief's Edge, which makes a lot of sense, considering you're just going to be poking, as Hiva is doing currently.
You raise a good question about the Cedric and Mountain setup. Because now we get to answer the question, is it Cedric or is it Mountain? Or is it both of them? We'll have to find
the ladder.
Ooh.
Or the tertiary, rather, in this one.
But Hiva, on this Karma, we don't see it all that often. Tried to lock the chains down there with that level 2 advantage that they had, but actually took so much damage in exchange for it. Got damage down to Inero, but Inero is struggling. 13 CS to 4 after that first kill.
Yeah, Mountain, and it feels so weird saying Mountain and not Cedric. Mountain and Inero in the bottom lane. Top lane, though, it is Beansu and Smitty J. It's Galio versus Rumble matchup, and there's not a lot of damage going on to Beansu actually, with the bulwark coming up. It means that the overtime flame spitter damage will generally be mitigated for the first couple of ticks, as every tick will just give Galio more health with bulwark.
Yeah, and I mean, like, let's look at this as Dan actually heads up into the top lane. We'll see whether he can connect with the Q, as Beansu slowly making his way there.
There's some punches, there's a Q, there's Gilius looking for the counter engage, comes in with a flash body slam onto Beansu and will punch him down, drunk him under the table.
So you can see exactly how difficult it is to land any kind of crowd control coming from Galio. One thing I was going to say about the Galio lane is it shouldn't end up being all that bad against Beansu. I mean, they're both melee range at that point, then you can start landing the Resolute Smite coming out from Galio. Ooh, mid lane, Hiva flashes.
Sayo is on his way out, but Hiva keeps him in place with the lockdown, and Perks will just follow up with a very easy shock blast through the acceleration gate and get another kill. 3-1 in this game.
And G2 seem to be emulating the LCS teams fairly well. That's the same kind of roam that you'd expect to see out of an LCS jungler, out of an LCS support player, going to that mid lane to make sure you can help out. Got the Karma across the map after getting boots earlier on. So it's a good start for gamers too right now.
Yeah, Hiva is always a playmaking support though. He does roam a lot in the early game and during the mid game as well. Sometimes gets into precarious positions, but usually is the one to make the plays. Bot lane, Mountain is zoning away Jesse while his support is AWOL. And just allowing Inero to farm up with the Ashe. Mountain is just healing up. Just doing that in the bottom lane. But yeah, Ashe into this composition as well, as you were mentioning, will be able to initiate hard onto gamers too if they do get locked into that poke scenario around an objective. Gilius in the top side of the map has been warded up, so Beansu will be safe from this one. And eventually, Hiva has found his way back into the bottom lane.
Yeah, I'm still intrigued about this Galio. I swear I'm in the weird kind of twilight zone today. 3 champions that never really get played have been played today that we talked about today as well. So this time, bottom lane, Hiva's going to pop that shield on himself.
Has the tether down, does get the stun as well. Jesse comes in with the boomerang blade, flashes after. He's now getting all this aggro from the minions. Inero will turn around, gets the volley down with the frost shot, has the small amount of slow, looking for the ranger's focus, but doesn't have the mana for it. And Jesse will get out of there, and Mountain somehow managed to survive after all of that.
Just hangs on with his health. Mid lane, though.
Oh, Sayo gets the shield from the E. Perks will have to jump after him, though. Get some damage down with his combo. And Sayo will be safe for now. Also had Gilius waiting in the wings. Dan is now here, ready to gank Perks, looking for the follow-up. Sayo gets the shield once again. Is it enough to keep him alive? The flash body slap from Gilius says no, and Dan will be backing away towards his turret. Cuts off that escape route with the equalizer, and Smitty J looking for the flame spitter. Eventually gets it down before he overheats, and finds the second kill for the 1 and 2 trade.
No teleport out from Beansu in that situation. Hadn't hit level 6 for his ultimate, so was trying to catch up. Didn't have a read on where Smitty J was completely. And that is just another gank from Dan that goes awry, and it's all from the counter engages that are coming out from Gilius. He's in the right place at the right time to make sure that Dan's ganks are basically non-effective.
Well, Hiva in the bottom lane actually the lane with the substitution that is actually doing pretty well so far. I say pretty well, but Jesse is actually ahead in farm, but they have not given any other kills apart from that one kill onto the Ashe at the start of the game. Mountain comes in with a combo onto Heaver. He'll lock him down and give him an inner flame. Dan as well, taking up this ward here in the top side of mid. We'll receive a Shock Blast, will be warded once again by Perks. Sayo pushing in the middle lane. Fairly even in terms of CS. Perks is going to be slightly ahead with this wave coming in. Has picked up the Brutalizer and the Tier at only 8 minutes into the game, so he's doing pretty well for himself. Sayo will be glad to get this blue buff and try and continue to farm up. I'll take a look at the fan vote. 65% over to Gamers 2. It's significant, but Mouse still looking not too bad in this game. It's only a 1,500 gold advantage despite all of the kills. That's
going to be a tough gold advantage to really do anything about, though, without a good setup on a fight from Beansu with that teleport. Because now that G2 are running poke and they're ahead, it just means once they start getting to about that 2-item kind of level where Jace is going to be able to start putting massive amounts of damage with Shock Blasts, it's so difficult to really hold on in a game, especially when you've got a top laner that heavily wants to not itemize armor. He so heavily wants to itemize magic resist over anything that it's going to be tough for Mouse to properly itemize against the entirety of the G2 lineup.
Dan now taking up his red buff, just farming through the jungle, will survive that battle to the death with him. Gilius is spending a lot of time in mid lane looking for a gank onto Sayo. And this is also at the point in time where Sayo has Emperor's Divide. He has the barrier as well. The flash is still off cooldown, but Gilius has been seen as he went into the bush and also as he left the bush. So Mouse have the bead on the jungler. In their own Mountain, still in the bottom lane, taking a lot of damage from Heaver. Comes in with the follow-up, trying to get the damage out. Has been ignited as well. Heaver wants blood. He flashes into the turret aggressively into a Nero. Takes him out and will walk out with style. Jesse now trading up against Beansu. Tries to get the spell shield down, but will be hit up by the Ador Durand. Mountain just knocks him into the turret, and Jesse knows his fate.
Oh, Mountain got it.
Huh? Oh, because he headbutted him. And Beansu will not get it. That was actually a really heads-up play by Jesse.
Yeah, Jesse making sure the kill goes over to Mountain in that situation. I want to go back to Heaver's play there. That's one of the most aggressive plays we've seen as a support. All he had to do was make sure that he hit the Soul Flare, the powered-up Q, and the slow from that acts kind of akin to an Iceborne Gauntlet proc, where you have that slow field. What that allows you to do is chain it with the focused resolve tether, and then you can follow up the rest of the damage. And that's exactly what Heaver did there. And it's so difficult and so rare that you see a full combo like that come off, just because of how difficult it is to land that the snare.
Heaver is probably the most ham support in Challenger right now. He's always the one who will just go in first, just head first into the opposing team. Whether it costs him his life or not, he'll get that engage.
However, it did end up costing Gamers 2 an objective in the form of the first dragon of the game. Now Jesse is knocked up, but one of the things, actually, the nuances of playing an Alistair in support role right now is just the decision between when to combo and when to separate your crowd control. Again. Wow, that is so much damage onto an arrow. If you can, you want to just kind of never combo offensively, because it's so difficult to actually do anything once that crowd control is expended. You can see an arrow wasn't even really on the same page here in this game, so it's tough for Mountain to engage in this lane matchup and really do all that much without the Ashe arrow.
Yeah, or expend the flash, which only happens once every 5 minutes. Now Jesse and Heaver pushing into the tower. Still have that gold advantage in terms of the CS as well. It's mid lane. Perks is also accumulating a gold advantage, now 98 CS, approaching on the 100 mark, over 76 from Sayo. Again, the burst is coming out. Mountain this time just land the combo onto Jesse. Gets the tower shots, 2 onto him this time. Another focus resolve will pin him in place as he was continuing to land the skill shots. Perks now coming into the bottom lane, armed with a lot of damage in their own. Mountain still staying around this turret. Had found him with the blue trinket, but maybe a little too late. Dan is here to counter-engage though, looking for this Q to land. Does not connect it onto Perks. He'll go through that acceleration gain, try and get onto the bot lane escapees. Does not quite get there though. Gilius was also coming in for some of the fun, but we'll have to back away. This will be at least the bottom turret going over to game 2 for that aggression.
Yeah, bottom turret goes down. Perkz was caught out between his team and the enemy base at that point, but Gamers 2 certainly playing that one out smart. Perkz not going all that aggressive in that setup, but Smitty J is now in the mid lane, has his teleport available. They're looking to force down another tower, and you can see that Perkz Jace, we saw yesterday how much it kept Gamers 2 in the game against Mouse. This time it's setting them up the advantages in this game to maybe look for a win for themselves.
That being said, Galio is actually ahead in farm against Smitty in the top lane.
Smitty's spending a lot of time out of lane right now.
Yeah, doing a lot of roaming. Has the teleport as well, plus the flash, so he can now spend some time in the top lane and be fairly happy that he can get into a fight. And
it's not even like in a melee versus melee matchup that Galio's all that bad.
Ooh, wow. Into the Idol of Duran. Talk about comboing that perfectly onto Gilius, and Sayo will just poke him to death with the Sand Soldier. That was a fantastic setup from Mouse.
Nice little combo, and if we see that kind of combo on somebody like a Jace, who you know, is going to get locked down very easily in that setup, that may very well really undo Gamers 2. It's a very tricky thing to orchestrate, but you can see it worked once. No reason it can't work again.
Yeah, well, we've really been thinking about the Idol of Durand as like a team fight thing, but as like a knock someone into your team and keep them CC'd with like a Sayo Emperor's Divide or something like that, looking very good for the team of Mouse. Now, seeing what they were looking for with this composition.
And you know, one thing I actually feel like Gamers 2 just as I don't want to generalize all that much, because there are different players when it comes to Perkz and Jesse compared to their spring roster, but certainly Gamers 2 are less comfortable when their opponents are playing unorthodox compositions. Because, as we said, Mao's only 2 wins in spring were against Gamers 2 when they played really obscure compositions with Gangplank with a Teemo. I'm not going to say Galio is along the same lines, because I actually don't feel like he's particularly bad in this game. Again, he's up in farm. Farming was never particularly his difficult point in a melee matchup anyway. And at this point, they have a composition that has very clear goals. It's just, can Gamers 2 actually get their poke composition running in time to stop this Mouse setup?
Well, Gamers 2 use the on the hunt there, using their composition to take the turret, but that's a lot of everything really used to try and get the kill into Sayo. He was dropped very low though. Inero has been tagged up by the rockets. Smitty J may flash over the wall for the kill combo. He looks for it. The Flame Spitter gets him on the edge of the cone, and Inero is not able to get away. He actually didn't think that was enough damage because he had the heal.
Welcome to Challenger Series, Inero. This is Smitty J's house, seemingly, as Gamers 2 are now going to ramp things up, pushing down the middle turret as well. This is one of the real strengths of this composition, is just how fast turrets are going to die. Mountain, pops his ult late.
Gets the snare down. Away. Dan and Sayo here to defend the turret. That's a lot of damage from the Sand Soldier. Looking for the Conquering Sands, lands it onto Gilius, gets to slow down. Dan, though, will get obliterated by Gilius as he comes in. Emperor's Divide to slam them against the wall. Follows up with a Sand Shoulder damage, and the 2 Sand Shoulders made a free. Will actually pick up the kill there. Idol Duran on the Smitty J, locks him in place, lines up the perfect headbutt in from Mountain, back from the grave. He's there to take down the kill. That's a 2-1 underneath that turret, and Gamers 2 didn't quite finish off that turret right there in the mid lane.
Beansu with these Idol of Durans is setting up individual kills again and again and again, and that was kind of the counter engage that Mouse required as Smitty J came in at an awkward angle, and now it's Mouse that are pushing the turret down. That mid turret did not fall in favor of Gamers 2, and Mouse are going to take one for themselves.
Oh. First tower out to the team.
Yeah, and now they put up the Sun Disc as well. That's going to really make it tough for Gamers 2 for the next couple of moments to actually push out of their base and establish vision control for this dragon that's coming up. I mean, saying that they already have a lot of wards in the low side jungle, so they don't need to establish all that much more vision control than they've already got.
It's also going to say the Sun Disc is going to survive for approximately 5 seconds. There it goes.
There
Let's take a look at that engage once again, or rather that counter engage from Mouse.
Yeah, so this is Mountain at first under the turret. It pops his ult late, but it's fairly safe for him at that point. He knows as soon as he's behind the turret with the ult running, he's not going to get caught out. Big double chunk onto Jesse and Heaver, forces them back away from the turret. And look at Smitty J and the way he's coming into this. If he comes down and in through the side, he just groups with his team and is fine. But he wants this equalizer to cut Sayo off, but is not banking on the Idol of Duran, just catching him as he comes around the corner. And Smitty J ends up pretty much in no man's land under the enemy turret.
Yeah, Mountain had a really nice flash headbutt as well just to secure that kill, but there comes the Soul Flare. Pop. Just zones them away, and Nero is taking point currently. Don't really want to be too far in front of your team. The crab has been picked up there by Mouse, and Mouse will be aggressing onto this dragon area. Gilius is heading up with his team, just trying to secure this vision right now. Binsu laying down the harass. Speaking of Binsu, interesting in his item, but has picked up the Abyssal Scepter, so got a little bit of AP, a little bit of magic resist, basically everything Galio wants in life. Yes,
Galio really does want that magic resist. Oh. Just as a reminder to people that maybe don't see Galio all that much, Galio's passive runic skin converts 50% of his magic resist into ability power. So it just makes it more viable to just build MR and then just have a lot of damage.
Yeah, think Rammus, but a gargoyle.
No points.
Oh, Gilius though might score some points here. Binsu does get CC'd up, but he'll CC the enemy team as well. Comes in for the combo, but Dan also goes down. Mountain now comes into the fight. Big Emperor's Divide onto 3 players, but it's not enough damage to really net them the fight. Double kill comes in for Perks. Lands the Shock Blast, looking for another kill into Mountain, and will land it with the To the Skies. Gets himself the triple kill. A 5-for-1 over to Gamers 2, getting so far ahead in that fight, and the Dragon will go over to them.
Once again, Perks is on such a tear here for his team, and honestly, that setup didn't look all that bad out of Gamers 2. When you look at the positioning, the Ash Arrow actually misses in the beginning of that fight, as I was saying. It's actually Mouse that didn't quite get the setup they were looking for. Binsu is forced to ult 2 people. It's Smitty J and Gilius, which leaves Jesse and Perks on the side to just deal as much damage as they need. That ult has to start clipping some of the more consistent damage dealers in these fights. At that point, Inero cannot kite back on his own, and it's left to just Mountain to fall for Perks.
There's a lot of time in that fight as well where Sayo was not dealing damage, and at the time where he was like, I can deal damage, he jumped in on very low HP and died very quickly. But if Binsu lands more ultimates like that, because he also landed on 3 people, just on the very edge we actually had Hiva also being CC'd up by that. It just needs Sayo and Inero to be laying down that damage, but they're also zoned away. So in theory, it's not too bad for Mouse, but in execution, Gamers 2 eventually won out.
That's the thing is, this is a very difficult comp to execute from Mouse. Just because there are so many different moving parts that if they don't hit the right targets, it's so difficult to actually take a team fight. Because, as we said, itemizing MR against predominantly AD champions from the AD carry role and mid lane means that if Binsu doesn't catch one of them, he's just at the mercy of getting poked for the entire team fight. And you said it pretty well, that if Sayo and Inero aren't returning fire with that damage on the people that are inside the Idol of Durand, they're never going to have a numbers advantage.
That is a lot of damage in a very short amount of time, and the Teller will chase Dan down. Sayo comes in with a 3-man Emperor's Divide looking for the Wombo combo. Everyone is being gifted over to Inero to finish off, but the Shock Blast doesn't quite hit him. Smitty J, though, is there to wipe him up, though. Gilius is trying to get away from this fight. We'll activate the Happy Hour, and Sayo comes in with the soldiers trying to get the kill there. Mounted with the combo into the Idol of Durand. Smitty J, his worst enemy in this game, has been his ultimates from Galio. A 3-for-2 overall, an extremely messy fight.
A very messy fight, but great re-engage. Mountain once again proving his worth. Ooh, you can see how much damage Perks is really starting to output. And, you can see Mountain just really showing his worth in this game with these counter engages. He's just allowing Mouse to hold on far longer than they should do with this kind of gold disparity.
And Perks again with this Jace is the member that is doing so much work. This time with Jesse on the Civ, it has landed them, or netted them a good couple engages. Hiva as well has been pulling his weight in the bottom lane. Oh, onto the Azir as well with a Shock Blast. One more would send him down for the kill. But Hiva has picked up a Medjais. Very nice.
So this was that team fight once again. Dan just gets completely obliterated to start this one off. Even gets locked down by the by the crowd control that follows. The Ash Arrow landed onto Gilius at this point, but great ult out of Sayu gets both carries and Hiva at this situation. It's a little unfortunate that Inero is the only one there dealing a lot of damage, but does sidestep the Shock Blast that comes out. Binsu even coming down from the top as well. Smitty J we saw it on the side of his screen the first time, did manage to come in, pick up Enero, and met his unfortunate end once again to the idol of Duran. That's I think that's the third one this game that Smitty J has eaten, and pretty much just been picked off for.
Yeah, not fun. But Dan clearing up this wards. Hiva continuing to place down wards, just being a distraction while the rest of his team takes the Baron. Has this been warded up by Mouse? Yes, it has been. The soldiers come over the wall. The Ash Arrow will fly right onto Jesse. Perfect spell shield will actually stop the entire stun. But the aggression from Mouse will force Games 2 away from the Baron. It was a nice try while Hiva was playing Possum, but Mouse did read it out.
Yeah, at this point, Perks has reached quite an important spike. He now has level 6. Which is a weird thing still to say, in both Shock Blast and Hypercharge. So it means his poke and his tower pushing is going to be doing so much damage overall. I mean, just in general, now that Hypercharge has been maxed up, it means he's just doing so much added damage at full attack speed. 358 damage per attack on that Hypercharge. At 2.5 attack speed is going to shred through turrets very quickly.
It's actually interesting because at max rank, which is now rank 6 on Perks, you get an extra 40 damage from your Shock Blast. So as you scale later into the game, you actually have, in terms of scaling, like another point in the game where you're a little bit stronger.
Right.
Where you'd otherwise maybe plateau. But yeah, interesting stuff. Hiva, though, has been caught up by Sayo. Looks for the engage there with the shifting sands. Perks will put another Shock Blast onto Beansu. Beansu did go back to base and purchase a bunch of armor items, the Ninja Tabe and the Glacial Shroud, but it's not quite enough to block a lot of that damage. Yeah. Perks are still tearing through it.
The Tabe is not going to help against the Shock Blasts, and the Glacial Shroud is such a tiny amount of armor just overall that you can see it too. And Beansu, who Galio is kind of like listed as a tank. I would more call him an off-tank rather than anything. You kind of do need the Bulwark on you to start giving you health back. Yeah. But you can see just 2 poke Qs from Jace is enough to force him all the way back. I don't think they can actually engage off this.
Oh, Smitty, though, goes very deep into the tower and has now been taken down. The flash, the 5-man Galio ultimate. How much work will it do? Quite a lot, apparently. And Sayo lands a big Emperor's Divide. Beansu comes into the fight just to follow up with a Resolute Smite. But that was a 3-for-2 overall. It looked fancy, but overall didn't do all that much.
Nobody expects the flash Galio ult to catch quite that many people. You can see exactly how that one went down. Perks instantly hit his cleanse and backed himself away to get damage down, but I want to see this again because how much reaction time did they have on this Galio coming in? This was the Ash Arrow that I wasn't sure that Mouse could actually engage from, as Smitty J has already shoved them away. Galio coming into the fight has the added movement speed from his E, catches all of them. Perks, there's the cleanse coming out, and Sayu, really nice Emperor's Divide back into the fight, but look at Perks. Untouched is able to just be enough of a presence for Beansu to have to back away here as well. It is all on that Cleanse Summoner being available that we talked about coming out of Champion Select.
Yeah, otherwise that would have been a whitewash for Mouse. It would not have been a 3-for-2 coming out the back of that fight. Dragon now goes over to Mouse. That will be the second for them, third of the game. Going over to the red team. Enero is very dead. Perks just
down.
Got him with a Shock Blast and a single Hammer Form combo, and that was enough to kill Ash.
So one problem that Mouse are going to have is that engage kind of style is not going to be enough to catch Gamers 2, or at least to kill Perks, because the cooldown on Cleanse is about 190 seconds, and the flash cooldown is considerably longer than that. So it means that you can bank on every time Galio can flash ult, the Cleanse should be available. So they have to somehow burn the Cleanse early, and now that the Baron has gone over to G2, their poke gets even more difficult to deal with. So I don't see many situations where Perks' Cleanse is going to get blown when the flash is going to be available. Beansu's ult is now up, so he has a third of the Cleanse cooldown to try and make it work for himself.
Oh, Gamers 2 have read that Dan was in the bush. He'll be flashing away. Beansu lands the ultimate onto 3 players once again, but he'll get chunked out himself. The kill goes on to Jesse, but they haven't found the golden target that is Perks, and the poke will continue to rain down.
Beansu is just throwing himself at carries, trading 1-for-1. And that is going to work for a while now, and it's actually going to be enough to force Gamers 2 to back away. It's not the worst trade in the world when you look at it. Beansu for Jesse is Jesse is also going to be one of the bigger parts of pushing towers down and relying on that Sivir damage. This game is a very intriguing one. Just overall, very different playstyle from what we've seen before. But honestly, Gamers 2 is a good read on Dan being in that bush.
I wonder where Lee Sin is. Found him.
There he is. Got him. And the Idol of Duran to follow up. Look at how much damage that dealt to Heva, though. That is not a weak ability by any stretch of the imagination.
Yeah, it does a lot of damage if it's fully channeled now. It's just about landing it on more people and the vital targets. And Perks, speaking of his cleanse, it is now up, so even if he gets caught in it, he can walk on out. Even has the flash just in case. So if they can just get him, if they can just kill Perks. But I say that, but yesterday they tunnel visioned on Perks and then got punished by Gamers 2, so we'll see. But Sayo over the wall, aggressive play onto 3 members, but here comes a teleport by Smitty. I think the Emperor is gonna go down here. We'll receive a drink from Gilius to send him to the graveyard for now. 1-0. This should be the top turret now going over to Gamers 2.
Yeah, it will be, because Sayo is such a big second half to the Idol of Duran follow-up. Yeah. They need the Azir damage there, so they have to concede this one. Now they have to concede likely the next one. It's on the Shock Blasts. Perks gets Beansu, takes about a quarter of his health away. Maybe a little bit more, actually. Man, that is hurting him. Man, he's down to half health, just off one Shock Blast and a little bit more damage. Ooh. Man! Ooh, Perks is having a good week on Jace.
Turns out Jace is pretty strong. It turns out playing meta is also pretty strong. The Gamers 2 are finding out right now, other than the Karma coming in. Top tower is going down incredibly quickly. Here comes the Ash Arrow onto Jesse, looking for the damage from Sayo. Is it enough? Gets him down. Idol Durand onto 3 players. Once again, is it enough though? Here comes the Equalizer. 3-man knockup in from Mountain. He'll be going down for the CC. Is it enough for his carries to deal the damage though? Sayo picks up another one, looking for another onto Smitty J to flash over the wall. Inero, aggressive flash, looks for the volley, doesn't connect it. Emperor off the sands comes out with another conquering sands to pick up his triple. That was a 3-for-1, but Mouse do lose their inhibitor turret.
Oh, Mouse are just digging deep to hold on to this game. They lose the objective, just about take the fight for themselves, and now can look to regroup. The problem is they can't actually get out on the map to do all that much more, but Sayu is holding this game for as much as they possibly can. Jesse gets hit by this ult. I don't think he was actually expecting to take that. I would have, assumed that the spell shield would have come out. At this point, Beansu has already fallen in the fight, and Perks dropping is the big factor in this. Sayu still had enough health, still had enough damage after his missed position earlier to come back to this fight and end up taking a triple kill for himself. And Mouse, maybe this is back on for them. Maybe.
Maybe. Very importantly in that last fight as well, Perks cleansed out of the Idol of Durand and Thundering Blowed him before he got the full channel off. So it meant that the full damage didn't go onto 3 players.
Right.
And had it done so, all those 3 players you saw running away at the end would have already been dead.
Yeah, so. It could have been even better. I mean, that's the one thing now that Mouse are going to have is it's going to be significantly more difficult to kill Beansu the longer this game goes on. Just in the sense that Beansu is going to get more itemization. It's a lot more precarious of a team fight. Now, this is a good play out of Gamers 2. They're forcing the open inhib. They recognize that Mouse are looking to extend their dragon lead when it comes up, so are likely down on the bottom side of the map. They spotted them on wards as well, so now you drag them away from the area of the map where they have their advantage up to their weaker area and try and pressure out the turret, because again, Mouse can't really forego this inhibitor. They have to have somebody here to deal with the rest of the Gamers 2 lineup.
Asharo off the map. So that's going to be down for a while now. And now is kind of a good opportunity for Gamers 2 potentially to engage, and they have no shortage of ways to get into a fight with the Sivir ultimate. And this is going to be difficult, especially the Shock Blast keeps softening up the Mouse target. Dragon is going to be up in around 7 seconds, Baron in just under 2 minutes. Mouse clinging on for dear life as they continue to take Shock Blast. That one wasn't quite in range, but Perks will be laying them down every 10 seconds or so.
Interesting enough, so I must admit, I am no Galio expert. Only 2 points in Bulwark, which this late into the game I would expect maybe a couple more. just for the added survivability.
Yeah.
I mean, remember the defensive mastery tree was changed, but Sayu...
Gilius has found him, lands the perfect combo. There comes the ultimate in from Sayu as his last dying wish, but the ultimate from Binsu connects onto many targets from Gamers too, but this time there is no carry to follow up with the damage, as Sayu has already gone down. Another great shock blast in from Perks will be the double kill of that fight, and just like that, Gamers 2 are looking for the win.
Oh, it was so close for Mouse on these last couple of team fights, but Gamers 2 just having too much damage from the poke and the siege. They're going to tank up the Nexus turrets for now. They will be joined by minions fairly shortly to close this one out.
Yeah, Mountain, not much he can do about this one. Gamers 2 now come in with this win over Mouse. A very hard-fought victory 32 minutes into this game. They managed to bypass that. Galio utilizes composition extremely well and take home the win.
Gamers 2, they're back on track. This is perhaps the kind of style that really benefits Gamers 2 when you look at them playing pretty much a cutting-edge meta kind of composition with the amount of poke they had there. Mixing in the Karma as well, something a little new, something we haven't seen that much, but perhaps we were kind of anticipating. And on the other side of the rift, facing down some real unorthodox setups when it comes to team fighting from Mouse.
Yeah, I would like to see more of these type of compositions from Mouse as well, because I do not think that the Galio was bad. I don't think the Ashe was bad. I don't think the composition as a whole was bad. It was just tiny mistakes, tiny advantages that Gamers 2 picked up throughout that game that eventually led to the win. Because overall, as an idea, as a strategy, very good. In terms of the execution, obviously, is very difficult. But if they can sharpen that up, I think that can actually be extremely solid as the meta shifts.
Binsu got some surprisingly good ults.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah,
realistically, he was hitting 3 or 4 people multiple times.
Even without flash, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So, again, I don't dislike the Galio. I think it had its effect. I think it showed promise as well. Difficult to work around as a team, though. That's really the key thing. And Mouse, they had some fights where it worked really well. Heavy engaged. Then you get Sayu in there after the Ash Arrow with the Azir ultimate. I could see what they wanted to do. And it did work a couple of times. But Gamers 2 just had such a consistent strategy and played it pretty well themselves.
Yeah, whereas like the Jace is always going to scale up, whereas the Galio damage was starting to peter off. But we are going to take a look at one of the replays out of that game. It was Gamers 2 with the 18-minute dragon fight and the triple for Perks.
Yeah, so this, again, Binsu catches 2 people, but the damage was being done out on the outer rim of this fight by the rest of Gamers 2. And it just meant that nobody on Mouse could really stand up against Perks, and very similar to yesterday, in yesterday's game where Perks just had a great performance yesterday on Jace. Funny enough, he had a great performance today on Jace as well. 8, 3, and 11 overall today on Jace. And I mean, Perks was a new addition to Gamers 2. There was a lot of praise on Perks coming into this split. He certainly seems to be living up to it.
Yeah, this time was actually rewarded with a win today on Jace. Yesterday he did a lot to keep his team in the game, but this time eventually managed to get there city. But yeah, pretty good from Perks so far. We saw his Vlad. I would like to see more playmakers like Jace, people champions which can make a very big impact on the game by themselves. So,
yeah, it'll be interesting to see if he picks up Varus or whether he does adopt the Ezreal as well.
Yeah, Ezreal, still haven't seen him yet. Still no Runeglaive.
I mean, I know he's a solo queue stomp champion right now. He deals so much damage. So yeah, anybody wanting to kind of maybe hit solo queue, grab that Ezreal, or ban it. If you're not a mid lane player, ban it. Because that is annoying when you half health people with 2 items. But just in general,
sounds like Jace.
The 5.12 changes we saw here were kind of towards what we were expecting, but with a few more surprises. We were expecting a bit more split push, but there was a heavy prioritization on Irelia in this setup. We talked a little bit about how we expect that to be a lot to do with the players, but certainly for the first couple of games of 5.12, it seems like a slightly more refined version of 5.11, just a couple of tweaks here and there. A couple of champions fall down, a couple of champions have risen back up.
Yeah, I mean, overall, we're still seeing the poke compositions. Didn't see a whole lot of it in Challenger, but I think when we look at the top levels of play, it's still going to be a thing.
Yeah.
We are going to start seeing counters now with, like, split pushes now coming out. Like, I think Irelia was very specific to the fact we have so many Irelia players, but again, other champions, which can split push, people wave clear as well. So, yeah, it's pretty cool to see how the meta is now shifting into different playstyles.
Yeah, I completely agree. Maybe we'll see more Galio. Maybe we'll see more Karma.
Yeah.
Or Braum. It's so weird that we talked about all three of them today, which obviously people aren't really going to care about that we talked about it, but I am really confused by how that happened. But it's a good thing. It
is a good thing. Yeah, I'd like to see more Karma as well, but I wonder if that's just a Hiva special. Either way, now 2 weeks of the round robin have been played out, so let's take a look at those standings once again. So right now, Team Dignitas EU have separated from the rest of the teams and now 4-0. Mousesports and Gamers2 after that game now share the next place with 3-1. D-Now Esports are just behind them, and ex-Nihilo and Overclock is still yet to get a win.
Still yet to get on the board themselves, but make sure you join us again next week. Maybe we'll see them get their first win on the board, because we'll be breaking down the action from Tuesday's games and starting off Wednesday, this time with Mouse versus Team Dignitas EU.
And right after that, it is ex-Nihilo up against Gamers2, and they'll be concluding the day with Overclockers challenging Denial. That may be a difficult one. The action restarts at 1800 CEST.
Now, if you missed any of the action from today or want to catch the Tuesday games in full, check out the VODs Hub over on lolesports.com.
And if EUCS didn't sate your league hunger, tune in again at 12 AM CET or 3 PM Pacific time for Prime Time League.
And if, like Tam Kent, you have a devouring appetite for some League of Legends, even more League of Legends, Freak and Zyrene are going to be bringing you week 2 of the North American Challenger Series Summer Split just a little bit after PTL.
Yeah, Renegades are looking super good over there, Stress. But that does it for week 2 of the European Challenger Series. So from myself, Stress, and the Challenger broadcast team, thank you for watching, and we'll see you again next Wednesday.